Hello. Hi. Welcome. This is day 3 of a 3-part series. So I've been all week. Starting Tuesday, we had day 1 of this Inner Mean Girl series. It's called Ditch Your Inner Mean Girl and Learn to Trust Your Own Voice. And so all week, so Tuesday, day 1, first of all, thank you for everybody that's joined me every single day. It's been amazing, and I'm so grateful that so many of you are tuning in, and those of you that have signed up for my email list and you're getting the emails every day and you're doing the homework, and it's freaking awesome just to have some communication going about what this inner mean girl is, and then how we're affected by it, and then today what we can do about it kind of, and who we truly are if we're not her. Hi Amy. Hello. Hey, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you guys are all joining me. So day 1, it's okay, Amy. You can do your homework. You have until tomorrow or until tonight. So I'll be talking more about that too. So you're not out of the running. So I'll be talking about this a little bit later too. But for those of you that have signed up for my email list and have been getting them, and then you'll see in the email that there's little homework assignments every day. And if you do all 3 of them, then you're put into a drawing for a 30-minute free coaching session with me, where we can talk a little bit more in depth about any questions that you have that come up about your inner mean girl specifically, or what you can do about it, or how you want to begin kind of this understanding or healing process with it. As I mentioned, just to recap, so on Tuesday, it was our first day. We talked about, well, first off, we named our inner mean girl, and I talked about how mine, I named her Cynthia, maybe possibly after my algebra teacher in high school. It's a whole nother story, but her name's Cynthia. And what happens when we put a name to her is that we understand that she isn't us. And it gives us a chance to other her and kind of give ourselves grace and understand that who we are to our core, we would never speak to ourselves the way that our inner mean girl has spoken to us, a lot of us, our whole lives. For me, I can't really come up with a day or a time or a year in my life where she showed up. For me, she has always been present. And so it was really difficult for me to understand that she was not me. So day 1, that is the most important part, is finding a name. It can be kind of like a fun exercise. Mine's Cynthia. There was Sally. Someone rhymed their inner mean girl with her first name, so that's really important, because once we name her, then we can understand and recognize the ways that she speaks to us, and recognize the types of things. So when you have certain negative thoughts or certain beat the shit out of yourself thoughts, for lack of better terminology, then we can understand that that's Cynthia, or your inner mean girl, and it's not you. And so that was the importance of day 1. Day 2, we talked about how you're affected when your inner mean girl is running the show. And I spoke a little bit on my mental health and my addiction history and kind of my upbringing a little bit, just kind of told a little bit about my story to give you guys an understanding of how I was affected. And we talked about the 4 ways that we are affected. To many of us, it can be different, varying degrees, but we're affected emotionally, mentally, physically, and then spiritually as well. And I did not have an understanding that those 4 components, or I called them realms, that those were even 4 separate things to myself. Because before I started doing this work and understanding my inner mean girl, or for me, I'm a recovering addict. And so before I started to do the healing work in my addiction and kind of the why behind my self-destruction, and that inner mean girl voice, I didn't understand that there were different components of my life that were being affected, or that I could work on specifically, in compartments. So it's not maybe as overwhelming, or it's just easier to understand. So, like I mentioned, there was that emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual realms that are affected by your inner mean girl taking control. The coolest part about it, though, so today's training is about trusting your own voice and learning to do that, how to trust your own voice. And I've been capitalizing own voice because it is just as essential as your name. It's you. Just as essential as the inner mean girl's name is to her, your own voice is you. And they're separate. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about today. Your own voice is your authentic self. And it is what your inner mean girl has been kind of at war with your whole life. And so if you want to dive a little bit more, if you want to start from the beginning, go back to day one, name your inner mean girl, learn the different ways to recognize when she's speaking to you. Or what that sounds like when she's in control. Day two, go back to day two, watch the day two training. If you want to learn a little bit more and dive deeper into each realm, I went kind of in depth yesterday. And so, yeah, today is about our own authentic self. So one of the first things that I can really ask you guys is, when you think of, this really helped me when I first got clean and started to really try to rumble with this idea that like my inner mean girl wasn't me, because my first instinct, and a lot of our first instincts, is to really blame ourselves, shame ourselves, call ourselves pathetic, do all of these things, and it keeps us so small and sad and embarrassed from even starting, and it keeps us sick. So for us to be like, hey, it's not my fault. That none of this is my fault. It is, however, our responsibility to take control of our lives once we do understand that, hey, we can make choices to turn our life around and to think differently and change our perspective on ourselves and the people and the world around us. So when you have something like, I don't know, I use like a baby kitten, like analogy, when you aren't taking care of that thing. Like if I came across a baby kitten, right? Like it's helpless, it like needs you, it has needs, it needs, to be nurtured, right? And if you aren't taking care of it, there are three things. You either are abusing it. That is the opposite of taking care of it. You're neglecting it, which is another way to, not care, or you're abandoning it completely. And that is kind of how we can look at our inner self, our authentic self, not the inner mean girl, but our authentic self is something that just needs us to take care of it. I use this analogy a lot when I talk about like our physical bodies. This is how I did a lot of my inner work around my self-image and my body image and the way that I think of my body, because I did not care, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, I'm awesome at taking care of myself and loving myself. I was literally a 0 for years. I was in active addiction. I was very active in self-destruction in many forms. And I was suicidal. And that is the lowest low. That is like, that's a 0 on the scale of caring and loving for something, is where I was at. And, I know a lot of us, I know a lot of you joining me. I'm so happy to see so many of you joining me. Welcome. This is day 3 of the Inner Mean Girl training series, and we're talking about how to trust your own voice and what your own voice looks like. So for me, I didn't really understand that I shouldn't listen to my inner mean voice, or my inner mean girl. I thought she was me. So it made sense for me to completely self-destruct. I was abusing, neglecting, and abandoning my authentic self consistently on a daily basis, like time after time after time, all day long. And I didn't grasp the concept, and that's okay, because like I mentioned in day 2, if you want to go back and listen again, we talk about the societal pressure, the societal expectations, cultural expectations. I touched on beauty standards for women, and expectations of our bodies and the way that we're expected to present ourselves to the world, and carry ourselves. And, for women, there's so many of us that our role is to keep the peace. I talked on that as well in my home life growing up in this abusive, chaotic home full of alcohol. When I was growing up, my role was to keep the peace. That is how I survived. It was a survival tactic, and it's where a lot of my trauma comes from. And I use a lot of these buzzwords like trauma. There's a lot of trigger warnings on this as well, because I talk so openly and freely about my addiction and my past, and now my healing process, because that's why we're here. I'm hoping that I'll be able to connect and kind of be able to, maybe you'll be able to resonate with my story, and you'll be able to carry forward and kind of even be curious about your own authentic self versus like that mean girl voice in your mind. Yeah, so instead of like keeping the peace, which was a form of abandoning myself, it was a form of neglecting myself, like that helpless baby kitten thing, keeping the peace in my home and staying silent when I knew I should stand up for myself. And, all of those behaviors are trauma responses. And that was me keeping the peace. But now, once we kind of realize that that's what we've been doing, and understanding that in allowing certain people and situations and even that inner mean girl voice in our head, her being one of the things that we've allowed to abuse, neglect, or abandon, we've abandoned ourselves in letting that person control our lives, really. And so that's the whole point, is kind of removing her from kind of our forefront, and understanding when she's speaking to us in these negative tones that we can stop it. We can say, okay, so what I'm hearing this inner thought say is, why would you come on live and talk? You're really doing this for a third day. You think anybody cares and is listening to day 1 or 2? That is something that my inner mean girl has said to me and could say to me. And when I recognize that, it freezes me up a little bit. I'm like, even like saying it out loud it's nerve-wracking. It's doing a hard thing, is being vulnerable and addressing that to you guys. Thank you for being here and hanging around. Because that's something that my inner mean girl has said to me. And for me to catch her in the act and to say, okay, wait, that feels not good, right? I feel a certain way. I have an emotion in me when I hear that thought. And so instantly I'm like, okay, my authentic self, my own voice does not make me feel that way. When my own voice, when I'm authentically speaking to myself in a loving, caring manner, like how I would to that baby kitten, because they're freaking adorable, when I would never say those things or do those things. I would never do hurtful things like that to something that just needed my help and just needed me to be a caretaker. So I know that's a pretty good indicator that is Cynthia, and she is trying to tell me something false. And so if I can catch her in the act and then counteract that by going like, is there truth to that? Okay, so what is the evidence? Like, lay it out. How could it be false? And then I can go, well, I got several DMs yesterday from wonderful women, some women who I have never met. They're new to my page, they're new to my content, and it's wonderful, the feedback that I've been getting on what people have been getting from the trainings, day 1 and 2, and just how they resonate with it. And it's amazing. And if I can help one person, like, that's why I'm here. That's what this training is for. So I can be like, okay, I can like catch that in the act and kind of diffuse it, just by asking, is this true? Kind of going back to the body image thing, I talked about making peace with my body. I viewed my body like that small kitten. Just follow me, try. And once I realized that like my physical body is something that I could love and care for and nurture and treat with respect. At the bare minimum was starting with respect, because that was very difficult for me to even fathom. And then beyond that is care and like love and all of that can come after respect is formed. But before that, I had disrespected it so much. Like, it's like finding that like that abandoned little kitten and just like tossing it to the side and being like, you're not worth it for me. I didn't want to do that, and I found out that I was doing that to my body and to myself. And so once I realized that like my body is actually just here, like it's like my body is what is carrying my experience of my life through. And I was completely abusing it, neglecting it, and abandoning it continuously, day in and day out. And once I understood that I could treat it differently and be willing to look at it from a different perspective, that maybe it's something that is just kind of, it's at my mercy, really. And it's up to me to decide how I'm going to treat it and how I'm going to treat myself, in my mind and things like that. So yeah, like I mentioned, like it's not our fault for, I could sit here and and beat myself up and or let my inner mean girl continuously beat the shit out of me by telling me oh, well, you wasted all of these years in active addiction. You're so pathetic. You haven't taken care of yourself for years. You wasted all this time, all this stuff. And instead of blaming and getting on my case like that, I can just be I didn't understand. I didn't have the tools to understand how to do anything differently or how to look at myself with a different perspective or a different lens. And now that I do, it's not my fault that I was raised in that trauma and raised in, even in the world around us with the beauty standards and things that I was talking about. That's not our fault that we're immersed in this culture and the way that we are, taught to as women of what our expectations, of what it is, what we're supposed to be. But I understand that it's not our fault. But once we do understand that it's happening, it is our responsibility to do something about it. Hey, Courtney. Yeah, yes. It is our responsibility. We have the power, we have the willpower, to make some decisions and choose to, and I understand it is way, way easier said than done. Please don't get anything out of this training that I'm saying that it's easy, because it is the hardest thing that I've ever done to decide to stop running away from myself when I understood that it wasn't working. I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't running. I can't run from the voice in my mind. I couldn't run from my inner mean girl. And she was beating me every time. And once I understood that I couldn't continue running, that it just simply wasn't working, I had two options. I could end my life. That was an option for me. Or I could do something about it. And I could try. And by turning around and looking at myself and looking at that inner mean girl and all of the hard things that I was avoiding, abandoning, neglecting, all of this stuff, when I looked at it and simply just started to ask what it was, what is it? How can I help? How can I do anything to solve this? And I was willing to go through the very painful, very uncomfortable, confusing, very disruptive process of completely transforming into, I feel like a different creature today. I feel like such a different person. But I had to be willing to do that hard work. And that is when we understand, yes, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility to do something about it. And so the whole theme, the whole thing, I understood what I was running from, but what was I looking for? What was I running toward? I understand what I was running from, my inner mean girl and all of the things that she says to me, but what was I running toward? What did I really need? What I understand through my recovery and from all of everything that I've read, this wonderful book that I'm reading right now called Conscious Recovery, is by TJ Woodward. It's amazing. And all of the texts, I've mentioned I'm active in a 12-step program. Everything that I can sit back and assess of okay, what does this give me? Obviously, I feel fulfilled by this. What is it that is in this that I've been craving? Every single time, it's connection. And that is my huge, big takeaway of what we need, what our own voice is, how to trust your own voice and how to connect with yourself. Connection, right? I just said it, how to even connect with yourself, because for the longest time I was reaching for any and everything. And my story is alcohol and drugs and many other things. I talk about, men and spending money and food and all of these other things that I was leaning on. And there's many other ways that a lot of us, whether, when you're in recovery from active addiction, or if you are just happen to stumble across this page, welcome. Please stick around, because so many of us, like I mentioned on day 1 and 2, we have this inner mean girl, no matter what we are, no matter if we're man or woman, no matter, I said, rich or poor, it doesn't matter where you came from or what your current life is like today. You have this voice that is kind of nagging you and telling you what you don't deserve, what you can't do. It's self-doubt, it's self-criticism. And that's what we're really getting to the bottom of with this training, to learn how to connect. To connect with ourselves is one of the most important things. I was escaping from myself for all of those methods. I was, choosing the easy way out, choosing the easy fix, which worked for quite a while, honestly. I think alcohol and drugs saved my life, because I think without them, I didn't understand how to process the emotion that and the trauma that I was not dealing with. And I think I really needed to spend some time until I was ready to look inward and to face my inner mean girl. I wasn't ready, and alcohol and drugs helped me escape before that decision was made. But it got to a point where they were definitely harming me way more than they were helping me. That brilliant strategy of pressing the easy button and getting out of my own head and of my own life, essentially, it wasn't working anymore. And it was more self-destructive, much more self-destructive. The behaviors that I was engaging in were like life-threatening at that point. And so I had to figure out a way to connect with myself. And then it wasn't just myself. I mean, that was, to be honest, myself came second. The first thing that I connected with was, like I mentioned, I'm part of a 12-step program. So for me personally, for my story, connection to other people was my first thing. I thought that connecting with other people meant that I would go to the bar, have several drinks, and then be able to like dance and joke and laugh and like talk to any stranger on the street. And I thought that that was connection. And that is not connection. That was not my authentic self. That was a face that I was putting forward. That was, who do I want, or who do I think that they want me to be? And I'm going to try and be that for them. It was people pleasing. It was my perfectionism. And it was, a drunk, high, lost, hurting, in pain Mariah. And it wasn't me. And so when I got to treatment and had to, without any of my, I'm laughing because it was so hard. I was a bitch. I was very rude when I went to treatment to take away my shields and my armor, that I was using to protect myself from the outside world, to take that away from me and to expect me to connect and open up and speak my truth to people in the room. Even I had been going to therapy before that, but I had literally never until I went to treatment actually told the truth to a therapist. Not really about like how much I was drinking, what I was doing, like to the extreme of what it was. I kept it all secret, or I lessened it when I would talk to a therapist or a doctor, because I was afraid of judgment, and I was honestly afraid of like what they were going to do with me if I told the truth. So yeah, connecting with other people was absolutely my first step. And I did this through recovery meetings. But there are so many other ways. I mean, if that's not the avenue that you want or that is aligned with your life, like there's so many ways that you can connect. Honestly, even Instagram, it is one of the coolest tools that I found in recovery for me, because it's brought me so many beautiful people that are living a lifestyle that I'm living. We can find any type of group that you want to be part of, or people that you want to be like, or wish that you were like, or had more friends like that. It's available on social media. Like all you have to do is go up into the search bar, like type in a word. Like there are intentional groups. That's kind of the main point, is like join a group that has an intention to it. Like joining a book club, like the intention is to read books and nerd out about what is happening, in the text. Like that is the intention, is to connect with other people that like to read. An intention is joining a gym, or like a specific gym class, maybe a group fitness class or something. Like your intention is to, do the thing for yourself, but also connect in a way with other people that are aligned with that as well. There are masterminds that you can join online if you need a mentor or a coach, like for life coaching or this type of thing. And I'm practicing to be a coach for that as well. So like there are ways that you can invest in someone to kind of guide you and lead you through the process. Connecting with other people is number one. And there's many different ways. I'll have this included in my email. I'll kind of bullet out some things. And I plan to send out like a comprehensive list on Monday with like all of the different ways to connect. So that's with other people. Secondly is, or in order, this was my order for how it worked for me when I found recovery, is connecting with other people. Then it was connecting with myself. Once I was kind of not as afraid of myself, or found some basic level of respect for myself, I could then start to kind of converse a little bit with myself of like, okay, well, what do you need? Okay, well, like, what have you not gotten in the past? What could I do instead? And so ways that I connect with myself, I mean, like I read a book, I go on walks a lot, and to talk about like connecting with your body, I started to do pretty like low intensity workouts, but for me it was honestly very, very cool because I had been living out of such an out of body experience when I was in active addiction for so long that I didn't really understand that my body was me. And that might sound really crazy, but it's true. Like when I picked up weights and started to understand that like I could do these movements, and I could do the lunges and pick up heavier weights, and I could do the moves that I needed to do. It was honestly really crazy and very cool. I started to bond with my body and understand that like if I treated it certain ways or fed it certain things or made the decision to get some sleep or fed it enough water, like I learned to connect with myself on such a cool level that it was never possible when I was drinking and using drugs the way that I was, or just the way that I was overeating or whatever it was. I was escaping constantly, And even today I catch myself when I'm like scrolling for too long. I'm like, this can't be my new escape. I have to recognize that I'm doing that, put the phone down and find a way to connect with myself, and a lot of that is like nature. Okay, so like nature and gardening is more my third one. So connecting with others, connecting with self, and then connecting with something that you view as a higher power than yourself. For me, I found that in nature when I would go on walks, and I think it's from how I was raised with my great-grandparents teaching us how to garden and teaching us the beauty of planting a seed, nurturing it, watering it, watching it grow, and it'll give you a gift. It's the coolest thing for me. That is kind of where I found my spirituality, is just the wonder and awe and the study of how the world around me works, and the energy that I put out is what I receive. And it took me a while to understand that. And that was definitely my third step, because being in the lowest of lows in where I was at before I even attempt to enter my healing journey, I rejected the idea of a higher power for sure. So it was connecting with other people, kind of hearing that other people had gone through it. I was sitting like this at a lot of meetings and just like closed off, just not even into it, And eventually when I would hear people share stories that were similar to mine, and I would hear people that had gone through really tough shit, and they were coming out smiling or saying that they were grateful or saying that, they're just glad that they made it out and that they're living differently. And I'm like, wow, so it's possible. So I think that curiosity and that possibility that I saw in other people, that was really my first step. So that's really the beauty of like joining the intentional groups, and even if you're not like joining a specific group, like I completely understand social anxiety. So if you're not the type of person that's going to like walk into a gym or walk into even like a book club or even a 12-step meeting, I 1,000% understand. In the beginning, there were so many times where I'd get in my car, drive to the meeting, and I would sit in the parking lot and I would just have so much anxiety, and I'd see so many people going in that I would just put my car in drive and drive home. And I would cry all my way home, and I'd park in my garage and I'd be crying because I didn't go in because I was afraid of connection. I didn't know how to put myself out there. And so I'm just telling you, I get it. I've been in a really similar spot if that's where you're at. So connecting with others, then finding some ways to connect with yourself. Again, in my email, I'll give you like an extensive list of things that have worked for me. Thank you. I think you're awesome too. You're awesome for being here. Thank you for just everybody joining me for this 3-day live training. And third was connecting with something that you view as a higher power other than yourself. For me, I call it the universe. That my spirituality is something that I'm a little timid to talk about because of how I grew up and the religion that I grew up in. And I'm always really afraid of stepping on people's toes or being I don't know, yelled at. I don't really know what it is. I think the people pleaser in me is a little nervous to talk about my spirituality yet, but I've been talking with my coach and she's like, you got to get it out there. It's a huge part of who you are. And I was like, it really is. It's really like it's really how I found the deepest connection that I never thought that I'd ever have. So that is really my segment on how to trust your own voice and what that looks like, and to understand that that inner mean girl saying these things to you that literally wants you to lose, she is mean and rude and hurt and traumatized, and that, just like that saying, like, hurt people, that's her. And she's been filled all of this shit all of her life, that no wonder why she is hurting and hateful and saying the things to you the way that she is. So your role is to understand when she's speaking to you, and then understand what you can do to silence her, tell her to take a seat, because you're working on yourself, and to try and like ask yourself really what you need, and to learn how to connect with yourself. So that is the end, you guys. My 3-day live training series of Ditch Your Inner Mean Girl, right? Learn to trust your own voice. And I'm still here. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I loved this training. I loved so many of you guys that joined me for the full 3 days. There's way more people that signed up for my email list through this training than I ever thought possible. I'm so freaking grateful. And if you haven't signed up, the link is still in my bio. So go ahead, sign up. I could send out all 3 videos. I'll probably be sending them all 3 out again tomorrow, just to kind of make sure that anybody that wants any of the replay videos or any of the homework opportunities, yes, there's homework. No, it's not scary. And so those of you that do have homework and have been getting the emails, you'll have through the weekend. It's a holiday weekend. And then I'll be picking a winner on Monday if you do all 3 days of the homework. There's instructions in the email of how to do the homework and where to send it. And then I'll be picking a winner on Monday and letting you know who is getting a 30-minute free coaching session with me. So then we can dive a little bit deeper, either on the Inner Mean Girl training, or anything that you picked up in this training as well. So yeah, if you liked this series, please tag me, show me what you learned and what you got from this training, either in your stories or in a post or something like that. And I just want to say again how grateful I am. And I'll be here. DM me.